Okay, so in this video, we're going to do a super easy yet super comprehensive question that you may see on your final exam for an intro to finance class during your undergrad or a finance recap during your MBA or master's. And you'd be surprised. Maybe you'll touch on these topics within your CFA level 1 and you need to recall. In this video, we're going to touch upon the IRR, the payback period, the discounted payback period, and the net present value. We're going to be running through a lot of stuff. And to be completely fair, it's my first time doing this question, this one exactly. So we're going to be working through it together. And you'll see how a seasoned vet, I'd like to call myself, could go through it and how you could do this really easily on your exam and how it's a walk in the park. So hopefully this helps you out and let's get into it together step by step. So let's read the question. Suppose that Shy Designs wants to open a new architectural division in Dubai. However, the CEO seems to be unsure of the viability of this project. The project has the following cash flows, okay? An initial investment of 640 grand today, 175K in year 1, 212,500 in year 2, 270K in year 3, and 315 grand in year 4. Now that said, they want to let you know that the firm's WACC remains to be 10.28%, okay? Now, given all of that information, all of that good stuff, what we want you to do is 4 things, all right? That may be crazy enough, and I may add a 5th thing. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. You know what? Let's add a 5th thing. Let's add another thing that you should probably, get good at. Strange way to phrase that, but you want to be able to figure out as well, not only the IRR, payback period, discounted payback period, and the NPV, but you also want to be able to solve for the profitability index. Now, I may write this like a fool, but this is also another requirement for this question. Okay, so we're going to solve for all 5 of these topics, these core topics within your capital budgeting chapter. Okay, so our mission, we're going to highlight them in red. We're going to solve for the IRR, okay, for the entire project. We're going to solve for the simple payback period. We're going to solve for the discounted payback period. And we're going to solve for the NPV. And also we're going to do what I've just added here, the profitability index. Okay, so there are 5 things that we want to solve for. Now, before we even proceed, what I always like to do is I like to do the first thing. I like to highlight the information and actually write what it means, because oftentimes it's going to give us a little bit more context and it's going to allow us to kind of frame this information properly. And once we've done that, we're going to use a timeline. I just want to really help you visualize this again. It's not something that you need to do on your exam, but it's definitely a tool that when you're studying could help. And once we have that, we're going to solve for 2 basic outputs, okay? IRR and NPV. This should not take you more than 5 seconds, okay? Maybe 10, if you're lazy, because all that we need to do is use our financial calculator. Then we're going to move on to the profitability index, okay? And we're going to use our timeline to visualize what the heck are we doing, okay? That too, extremely easy. Then once we've done that, we're going to put everything within a table that we're going to use to solve for our payback period and our discounted payback period. Quick FYI, before I actually filmed these videos, this one, I actually filmed a bunch of videos on the IRR, on the payback period, and the NPV and the PI. So if you ever want to get like a second perspective, or actually a 3rd or 5th, 10th perspective, you can definitely watch those videos. They're going to help you out and kind of put everything together. Okay, so enough talking. I know I get annoying sometimes. Let's jump into it right now. And we're going to begin by just highlighting the information one more time, kind of making sense of it, walking through it together. And then we're going to go ahead, put it into a timeline, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. You know what? I'll even put a little bit of, no, I won't put no Wolfie in the background. It's getting strange if I do that. So let's highlight the info, all jokes aside. I'm trying to give you all the energy that I have because I'm excited for you because you're studying hard. Oh man, the cringe, you can't buy it. You're born with it. So 640K is our initial investment. We have 175,000 on year 1. So payment 1 is equal to 175,000. Then we can move all the way here. We can highlight payment 2 of 212,000 500. And we could highlight payment 3 of 270K. No, look at that. It's not bad. It's awesome stuff right here. And we're going to highlight payment 4, which is our last payment. So there's only 4 periods really that we're looking at within this question. Awesome. Okay. So we got that out the way. Now we're going to highlight K, 10.28%. Now you may be asking yourself, why the hell are we doing this if it's obvious, if we're going to be on the exam and it's going to be right in front of us and we could just highlight it? Well, I'm assuming right now that you're studying, right? You're not watching this while you're going through your exam. That would be cheating. But what's awesome is that when I used to study back in the days, I don't know if I have my paper next to me, but I would literally write down every single thing. I read the question, I highlight the question, then I write down the elements of that question and I make sense of them. Listen, you want to be slow here. You want to take your time, and slow is smooth, okay? Once you're smooth with it, you'll be able to be fast with it. So that's the way we're going to frame ourselves here. Now that we've highlighted all of our information, we're going to go ahead and we're going to build a timeline, okay? From T0 all the way to T4, and we're going to highlight everything that was provided here, okay? You're going to see why that's useful. And then walk in the park, we're going to solve for the IRR, and I'm going to show you how you could use your financial calculator to solve for the IRR and the NPV. But I won't be spending too much time on explaining what they are really. No pun intended. But yeah, we'll go with that. So let's go ahead and build our timeline super quickly. So we're going to have t equals 0 right here. We're going to have t equals 1 right here. T equals 2 right here. T equals 3 right here. And t equals 4. That's awesome. We have everything that we need. Now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and just write the stuff that was provided in the question. At t equals 0, we have our initial investment. Okay. Now I want to stress that you don't necessarily have to do this on an exam, but while studying, it's an amazing way to kind of just slowly get some intuition on all the tools you need when solving these ambiguous questions on an exam. So payment 1, we know that we have, in this case, 175K. Payment 2, we're going to have 212,500. Go ahead and write like this. Payment 3, we're going to have 270K. Payment 4, we're going to have 315K. Now I'm going to do a quick sense check because I tend to pull, after my 6th video in a row of filming, my brain gets a little bit foggy. So 640K, 175, 212, 273, 15. Amazing. Okay. Now that we have all this, we have a timeline. The reason why a timeline is interesting, and I'll kind of maybe zoom out a little bit, is because we could actually use our timeline to really just showcase the inputs we will need in our financial calculator in order to solve for our NPV and IRR. If you see this on an exam, this should be super quick. And of course, I'm taking baby steps to that point. But what you need to do in order to use your financial calculator to solve for the IRR and the NPV is very straightforward. So we'll go ahead and draw an arrow, perhaps like this, right here. So to solve for your IRR and your NPV, NPV and IRR, use your financial calculator. Now, of course, you could do it by using the formula, but that's why I've mentioned my videos previously, such that you understand that you could kind of just look at them to get a sense of, oh, how do we use the formula? Why is the formula relevant? And when should we use it? Now, assuming that you are using your calculator and that you're allowed to use your calculator on your exam, I want to go ahead and simply highlight a few things, okay? On your calculator, if you press on, clear everything, you could actually use this function called the CF function. It's this one right here, okay? We're gonna press that. And if there's already some inputs, just press second, then clear work. But ideally right here, you're gonna have CF is equal to 0. Now CF equal to 0, as you could see, or CF0, sorry about that. Well, what you notice here is that this is actually CF0, okay? On your financial calculator, CF0 will look like this. It'll be this input right here. Then we need to input that. So you're gonna put 640,000, negative 640,000, and you should have this right here. Now I hope that it's mirrored and that you're not seeing it like inversely and you're like, what the hell is going on? But still, this is just an attempt to make this, once again, comprehensive and calm and a step-by-step that you can feel comfortable studying with at any stage of your process. So once you've done that, arrow down, okay? And I want you to get to CO1. CO1 is relative to the scenario that you're in, but in this case, our CO1 will be our first payment, okay? So our CO1 will be our first payment. Let me just highlight this like that. Our CO1 will be our first payment. And our CO1 will be then 175,000. You press enter. And then you can also have your FO1. FO1 stands for the frequency of that payment, of that cash flow. In this case, our FO1, well, it's straightforward. Our FO1 is going to be equal to 1 because our payment is only occurring once, right? Sorry about that, I got to sneeze. Sorry, I've been getting allergies lately, so my bad if I sneeze throughout the videos. That's my apologies. Sorry if it's gross, but we have FO1, which represents the frequency of an individual payment. In this set of cash flows, 175,000 or payment 1 is only occurring once. And for that reason, we're going to put FO1 equal to 1. Okay, hopefully that's clear. So you could leave that as is. Now, what's awesome is that you kind of get the pattern at this point. We could go ahead and write our CO2, and I'll put it here just because of the arrow, or I'll actually move this. I'll actually eliminate that. Sorry about that. I'm doing this on the fly. So, most of the times I don't have a plan. I mean, I have an idea of what I want to teach y'all, but it's not, it's not deeper than that. So erase these two. So we have CO2 here and FO2. So CO2 will be 212,500. Do enter. FO2 remains 1. And then we're going to have our CO3. So CO3, once again, whoops, you get the pattern at this point. Oh my God. Okay, you get the pattern. For some reason I'm not as smooth with it here, but it's whatever. So CO3 will be 270,000. And FO3 will be 1. Now then, CO4 will be right here. All right. Such that CO4 will be 315,000. Press enter. FO4 will be 1. So then we could review our work really quickly. We have 640,000, well, minus 640,000 as our CF0. CO1 is equal to 175,000, with FO1 equal to 1. CO2 is equal to 212,500 with FO2 equal to 1. CO3 is equal to 270 grand, FO3 equal to 1. CO4 315, blah, blah. So that's awesome stuff. Now you have all of your inputs. Quick answer to a potential question or a frequently asked question that students will have. Well, what if payment 1 occurred 4 times? So payment 2 is also 175. Payment 3 was also 175, and payment 4 was also 175. Well, then what you would do, and I'll erase it afterwards, don't you worry. Well, CO1 would remain 175K, but FO1 would be 4 because the frequency of that given payment would happen 4 times. So it's really subjective, like it depends, or it's relative to the question that you're dealing with. But now that we have that, okay, you could go ahead and press NPV if you want to solve for the NPV. Now, in this case, we know that our NPV, if we want to solve for that, we would have essentially our I equal to 10.28%. Okay, so you want to plug in 10.28 right here. You want to make sure that you plug that in. You're going to do enter. Then you could do compute for NPV. All right. And you're going to get an awesome number. You're going to get NPV is equal to $107,702.4231. Whereas our IRR, so I'll just put this like this, so you know that's the color, such that the IRR, put it in blue, all that you gotta do is you gotta press the IRR button. Boom, IRR. Then you're gonna do compute, and it's give you the IRR. In this case, the IRR is going to be equal to 17.637%. Okay, so that's grandiose. That's amazing. Now this should be correct, and we'll see if it's correct in a second afterwards. So now that we have all this information, this is awesome news. We were able to solve for our NPV and our IRR in seconds, okay? We were able to do that in literal seconds. It was such an easy job. Now notice how I'm not going in order, but you know, I think you could follow with me. It's not too bad. So we got our NPV and we got our IRR. So we could go ahead and get that out of the way. Now we're going to solve for our profitability index. And you're probably like, damn, man, why are you jumping all over the place? Well, the reason why we're going to do that is because it's going to make it a little bit easier for us. Okay, so the profitability index, really, what does it stand for? Well, it stands for the present value of your, sorry about that, the PI, the profitability index, stands for the present value of your cash inflows divided by the present value of your cash outflows. In this case, I'll go ahead and I'm going to go grab whatchamacallit. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna go grab a version of that formula that I wrote above in a previous video. So we're gonna go ahead and copy that. I just want to make sure that this is a comprehensive video where you have everything that you need. So if we go down here back to our question, go ahead and plug that in right here. Okay. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna highlight our cash inflows. What is a cash inflow? Well, a cash inflow is literally all the stuff that's highlighted in green right here. It's all the actual cash you made. So we could go ahead and highlight these as being our cash inflows. Okay, these are our cash inflows. And we're going to want to solve for the present value of those. Very, very easy solution to do that. Okay, very, very simple. And then we could go ahead and highlight our cash outflows. Our cash outflows will, listen, there's a reason why I put these in colors. Our cash inflows will be the negative stuff, the red stuff. In this case, our cash outflows is equal to 640K upon today, right at year 0. Okay, pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and solve for our little number here. I'm going to put this in a different color actually, such that it's a little bit easier to kind of walk through afterwards. So we're going to put this in orange. So we're going to go here. And we're going to calculate our profitability index. So in order for you to find the present value of your cash inflows, that may require a little bit of work. But your cash inflow, once again, as you can see here, is equal to CF0. It's your initial investment. And something that you receive today, well, that's literally in the present. So the present value of something that you receive today is equal to itself. I hope that's clear. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but it should be clear, such that you already know what you have on your denominator. It's going to be $640,000. So we have 640,000 right here. Awesome stuff. But what about your cash inflows? How do we go about that? How do we find a present value, and how do we do it as fast as possible? Well, there's two ways that you could go about it, and I'm going to highlight them right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm sorry that it may give you a little bit of kind of like cringe, but it's probably the best way to kind of highlight these two options. I'll go here. So we'll go like this. So there's two methods that you could use here in order to solve for this, but they're fairly straightforward. So you could go ahead. Sorry about that, by the way, if my nose is a little bit runny. It's just, it seems like I have allergies for some reason, okay? So you could use two methods. You could use this method, which is essentially the sum of your payments a given year over 1 plus k, to the power of I. This would be payment I. Or you could simply use your calculator. I guess we'll call this, you could use this. You use the CF function on your calculator. And we're actually going to go ahead and use the CF function. The CF function is actually mad easy. What you're going to do with the CF function is that you're actually going to omit CF0. So we're only going to highlight all of the other cash flows, because we don't want the net present value, we just want the present value. And the difference between the net present value and the present value is that one accounts for the initial investment. I hope that's clear as well. I won't spend too much time on that, but if you look at my videos, this will make sense. And because in this question, we already had, the chance, and because I did this in order for a reason. So I don't plan my stuff, but I plan a little bit. So because we inputted all of our stuff, all you gotta do is go back to your calculator, go on CF, and just put your CF0, right? This number right here, put it equal to 0. Okay, you're gonna do 0, enter. But then all the other cash flows you're going to maintain. So 175 for CO1, all the way to 315 to for CO4. We're going to keep those bad boys. We're going to keep them there. We're happy. Then you're going to go to NPV. You're going to maintain your I as 10.28. And you're going to compute for the NPV. And in this case, you don't even need to do that, by the way. Actually, what you could also do if you're way smarter than me is you could just add $107,000 to 640K. You could have done that, but I guess I didn't see that fast enough. But you could do that as well. So there's 3 methods, but assuming that you're dealing with a question in a silo where you didn't find the NPV prior, you would need to use what I just showed you. It'd be the fastest way to go about it. Okay, so that's just additional context, right? Learning is it's a long process. Learning is a continuous process and never stops, right? So one video is not enough for you to understand everything. It could help you, but it won't give you the full picture. Anyways, I sound like an old sensei. Okay, so you would have the present value of your cash inflows as being 747,702.4231. So I think that's correct, such that the profitability index would be equal to this amount divided by 640K. So we could go ahead and do we're going to get 1.17. I'm going to try to get a really solid amount. Yeah, so you get 1.16829. Okay. By the way, don't hesitate to not stop me because you can't, but to write a note if I am wrong. I'm literally so happy to correct something. It's no problem, no ego, no nothing. I'm here to help you all. So we got that. We got our profitability index. It was literally as easy as this. So this is easy. This is fun. So walk in the park. So we got out of the way. We got our PI out the way. So of course, quick little takeaway. If you have a positive NPV, and if your IRR is bigger than your WACC or than your K, for sure your profitability index will be positive. That has to be clear to you, okay? Because the IRR really dictates the point at which you're indifferent for your project, the point at which your PI, your profitability index, would be equal to 1. Okay, well, a few takeaways. I'm not going to jump too much into it. It's not a video where I'm doing a proof, but it's always helpful to kind of have this in mind. All right, now we can move on to solving for our payback period. And our payback period is where it gets freaky. It gets a little insane. Okay, so we're going to use, I guess, green. 2 colors of green, because that's usually what I do when I do these questions. Okay, so let's go ahead. Now, if you want to solve for the discounted payback period and a payback period, I really do believe that the best method to go about this is by using the following table. And in this table, we're going to highlight a few things. We're going to highlight 1, the years. We're going to highlight the payments for those given years, or like the cash flows, either the cash inflow or cash outflow that year. So that's gonna be the second column. Third column is gonna literally highlight the sum of all the cash inflows you have. And the fourth column, if you decide to make it, will represent the balance that is needed for you to recoup your initial investment. If you looked at my previous videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the real, like, you really need 3 columns here, but the fourth column makes it a little bit quicker, a little bit easier for you. It's really up to your own discretion. I'm gonna give you all 4, okay? We're gonna do that for the payback period. We're gonna do that for the discounted payback period, okay? And you'll choose what works best for you. All right, the last step of this question, but this has been, funny enough, a question that has been on exams. And the reason why it's on exams is because it's annoying. But so far, so good, because solving for the IRR, solving for the NPV, and solving for the PI is a walk in the park. The only long part will be the following one, but not really, because we're only looking at 4 years. Anyways, enough spiel. I'm just a little bit tired, so I need to act like I'm having a human conversation and not talking to my wall right now. So, my goodness, the cringe is insane, but kind of work off the cringe. It kind of gets me going. So anyways, yeah, let's go ahead and highlight everything that we just mentioned. So we're going to have our years right here. Okay. We're going to have our cash flows right here. So I call them just CFs. I'll make it look a little bit cuter though. Don't know if that made anything of a change, but it's okay. If I think it did, that's all that matters. So we're going to have our cash flows. I'll make it like this. Move this a little bit here. Beautiful. And then we're going to write up the sum of our cash flows. And we're going to copy this, move it here. And then we could go ahead and maybe highlight the balance, right? What is left? So I like to call this the balance. And once again, I note that you don't necessarily need to go about using this. It's really up to you, it's up to your own discretion. However, the table definitely makes this easier. And you want to really have everything on your side when you're taking the exam. You don't want to give yourself an opportunity to make a, I don't like to use the word like bad, I'll say bad mistake here, okay? You don't want to give yourself that opportunity. Why expose yourself like that? So we're going to highlight the years. So once again, on an exam, it doesn't have to be this cute, but I'm here and kind of an OCD low-key person, I guess. So I got to do it for my own well-being. And also it'll make it easier for y'all to review this afterwards. Okay. We can go ahead and so many. Anywho, so that said, we have all of our information. We're going to plug in year 0, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And now we could actually just plug in the stuff. Okay, it's going to be straightforward. Of course, at year 0, you have a cash outflow. So right here, you would put 640K. Okay. And on year 2, you have a cash inflow. Alrighty. And I guess we're doing the normal payback period, so I'm going to use this color. So here we have 175K. Here we have 212.5K, 270K, and we have 315K. Okay, awesome stuff. Obviously, on year 0, well, your cash inflows, well, there's no sum. You actually have 0 up there. However, your balance, of course, is equal to minus 640K because you still need $640,000 to be able to recoup your initial investment. What the heck is the payback period, right? The payback period, well, what it tries to do, it tries to figure out, well, yo, when are you getting your money back? The money that you invested in this project, right? That's important because maybe that will affect your decision on whether you want to invest in this project. All right, so let's give it a shot. I'm going to go ahead and say that the sum of your cash flows after a whole year is 175,000, and I'm going to do the balance afterwards. You'll see why in just a sec. And I'm going to go ahead and, because I'm a lazy person, I'm going to plug this into my Excel so I have all of the correct inputs. So you'll give me 2 secs, and you're gonna see what I'm gonna get up to. 70. Also, awesome. Okay, cool. So the sum of your cash flows, please let me know if I make a mistake. I'm going to verify it's still 212,500. After year 2, the sum of all your cash flows will be 387.5K. Okay, so just a quick quick pointer here. You notice that the sum of your cash flows at this point is still smaller than what is left outstanding, smaller than your balance. For that reason, of course, your payback period didn't occur yet, right? You didn't find the point out the time at which you received your money, your initial investment back. So if we look after year 3, we add our cash flow from year 3 to our balance, we're now going to have, in total cash flows of this project, we're now going to have 657,500. So 607.5K. Now, this should ring a bell. Okay, this should ring a bell to you because now you realize that the sum of your cash flows, well, it's greater than your initial investment. And why does that matter? Well, it matters because it means that you surpassed your initial investment, and that means that we found our payback period. But the answer isn't between year 2 and year 3. That's not the answer. No, no, no. The answer will be a specific point. And we want to find that specific point, assuming that $270,000 was evenly distributed within that year, between year 2 and year 3. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to identify the balance. All right. Of course, there will be no more balance as of year 3. Right. You're good. You made your money. It's all good. But what we want to figure out is, well, what was the balance here? What was the balance at year 2? Because that balance will help us figure out how much we need in order to have our payback period. It's going to tell us essentially what is the amount of the total payment we had in year 3 that is required for us to finally essentially get our initial investment back. So in this case, at year 2, the balance, okay, what is needed in order to fulfill our initial investment, okay, just to make sure I have all the right inputs, yes, I do, is 252,500. Okay, so this is how much we need after year 2. And what's dope is that you notice, well, yo, you made that money. You got that. You actually made 270K. So you made more than what was required for you to essentially recoup your money. So what we're going to do in order to figure out, well, how much, right, assuming that this was equally distributed without the year, how much of year 2, or I guess of that 3rd year, did we need to be able to recoup our money? And don't you worry, the timeline is going to help us. And I guess we'll go ahead and do it now. Look at the timeline, okay? Let's walk through it together. Our timeline here, it highlights that, okay, you had all of year 0, all of year 1, right? All of the payment of year 0, right? Or there was nothing. You had the payment of year 1, you had the payment of year 2. And now we're saying that, yo, the payment of year 3 in this case, okay? The payment of year 3 is 270K. So after 3 full years, I guess I'll erase that. It's gonna no, whatever. After 3 full years, all right, you will have made $657,500, which is greater than your initial investment. So we know that actually you didn't need 3 full years to make your payback. You actually needed a little bit less. So we want to figure out, well, when is that point? When is that point at which you made your initial investment back? So what you're going to do is very straightforward. What you're going to do is you're going to take the balance. And I guess I'll zoom in. You're going to take your balance. Take your balance. You're going to divide it by your payment for the year at which you surpassed what was required. In this case, it's payment for year 3. Okay, so you're going to do 252.5K over 270K. And that's going to give you, in this case, if I'm correct, 0.95. 0.93. My bad, that's not me. 9351. Okay. The reason why this is super important is because it's telling us that, yo, your payback period, yes, it's in between year 2 and year 3, but it's actually assuming that everything was equally distributed. It's actually, so payback period, it's actually equal to 2.9351, because that's how much actual time, assuming that cash is evenly distributed throughout a year, throughout the 365 days, or throughout the 52 weeks, or throughout 12 months, whatever works for you, right? So that's what this is telling us. And that's awesome stuff, okay? So now that we have that, we have our answer for the payback period, the normal one. What we want to figure out now is, well, what's going to be our answer if we look at simply, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to essentially add all of these to our table. So what would happen if we look at our discounted cash flows instead? What will be our answer? So in this case, let's add those columns, right? Of course, discounted cash flows are going to be a little bit smaller, and it may require us more time if we take our discounted cash flows for us to recoup our initial investment. So here we're going to look at our discounted cash flows. Here we're going to have the sum of our discounted cash flows. And here we're going to have the balance. Now, of course, the balance is not something that you always need to do, but you know, it's always good practice. So quick pointers, of course, your initial balance, your initial investment will be 640K. And of course, at year 0, you would have no sum for your discounted cash flows because you didn't make any cash inflows yet. And here your balance will, of course, will be 640K if you didn't make any money yet. Okay, so that should be pretty clear. Now, what's awesome is that we could actually find our discounted cash flows by simply doing, and I'll highlight this here, I guess I'll put it in green, by simply doing some basic math. The basic math would require you to do the following. So by the way, I guess I'll just highlight this here. We got this, by the way. Ah, man, every video, that's crazy. Every video I press text and it brings me back 10 pages further every time. I never learned. This is actually, it's humiliating. If you saw like all my capital budgeting videos one by one, I always make the same excuse. Oh man, rough. Anyways, that's just a touch of my personality where you see the stuff that matters to me. The fact that I keep on pressing this darn button here. See, I did it again. That's crazy. Wow, I'm upset, man. That's nuts. Now you're probably clicking on the video like this person is not the person I want to study with because they're stupid. Anyways, we don't use those words. Nobody's stupid. But all jokes aside, that's just me trying to be funny, I guess. For you to find your discounted cash flows, it's going to be very easy. All that you're going to do is you're going to do payment for a given year, so we call it payment I, over 1 plus K to the power of I. So you're going to do that for every single year. So for example, year 1 is going to be 175,000 divided by 10.28. That's still our discount rate. Exactly. So that's how you're going to go about it. It's pretty straightforward. It's nothing too complicated, just something important to kind of keep in mind. Now, I'm going to assume that you did that one by one. And, you know, it's the name of the game. You got to do it. Okay. And I'm going to give you the answers for every single one of those years. So notice how we have everything here. So after year 1, our discounted cash flow will be 105,866. Such that here we're going to have 158,666. And then for year 2, we're going to have 174,729. And the sum of our cash flows, I'm just going to verify that my stuff is good. Yes, it is. It's going to be 333.416. Now, of course, I'm not even rounding up. I'm just putting, you know, the data as is. And for year 3, we have 201, 313, such that the sum of our cash flows is equal to 534, 729. Now, the reason why this is pretty awesome, making sure that everything's cool. The reason why this is pretty awesome is because you get to find something interesting. Notice how it took us between year 2 and year 3 to retrieve our initial investment under the simple payback period. But under this scenario, well, after 3 years, you still didn't recoup your money. You still didn't recoup your original equity or original investment into the project. It's going to take you a little bit more time. So if we look at the discounted cash flow for year 4, we get 212,972. Now, I may have rounded down, I may have rounded up, it's whatever. Such that then, after that year, you will have surpassed your initial investment. Right? You're going to have 747,702. Okay? So now you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I found my point. I know that my answer will be within year 3 and year 4. That's great news. So we know that we need to find our balance for year 3. Very easy stuff. In this case, it was 105,000. Yeah, that's fair. I'll put a -2 in front of it. 105, 270.07. Okay, so that's what we needed. That was our balance after 3 years. And once again, you understand that our cash flow, right? Like the point at which we're going to surpass our initial investment is between year 3 and year 4. I hope that's clear. Okay, so now what you got to do is simple. It's the same step, same thing, didn't change. You're going to do balance over payment for. You're going to get, you're going to take your balance, so it's 105, 270.07 over payment for. In this case, it's going to be discounted payment for, I guess, if you really want to be that accurate. 212,972, and that's going to give you, if I check it up real quick, make sure it's correct, 0.4942, such that your discounted payback period is going to be equal to 3.4942, and if I add the other points there, 89524. That's our discounted payback period. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that wholesome? Isn't that great that we found our answer, that it wasn't too hard? So, of course, doubling down on our takeaway that I mentioned earlier is that, well, duh, for sure is going to take us more time, to retrieve our initial investment if we're only looking at discounted cash flows. But if we look at normal cash flows, then yeah, it's going to take less time. So that's an awesome takeaway. Oh, whoops. So we're going to highlight that as being over. So, of course, let me know if I made a mistake. I'm trying my best to jump ahead as we're doing it to make sure that all is good. But it is possible sometimes that, it doesn't work out. So that's why I'm working hard right now to just verify everything. But in this case, I believe this is correct. So this is an interesting comprehensive question. All in all, the individual steps aren't difficult, right? You have to solve for the IRR, for the payback period, the discounted payback period, the NPV, and the PI. Those steps in themselves aren't too complicated. But when you have to do all of them in one, it could get annoying. And this is where you want to show some sign of resilience to be able to work through the question. And especially when you're practicing for the final, listen, do it like I did now. Explain the topics, draw the timeline, write down every single one of the parameters and or steps that you need to take in order to solve this efficiently and get the correct answer. Okay? Now, of course, let me know if there's a mistake. Always happy to make an amendment, but so far so good. These things seem to align. Okay? I did a few proofs as we went through this. Now, I hope that you're able to kind of feel more empowered, that you feel like you have the tools that are required to solve every single one of these. And the reason why this video is pretty interesting is that 1, this was on a past final and actually made it harder. 2, These are amazing, amazing, amazing opportunities for you to practice individual pieces of other large problems you'll see in the future. Within the capital budgeting chapter, you will need to find the IRR. You will need to find the PP or the DPP. You will need to find a profitability index. You need to be comfortable with these topics, okay? And on a final exam, you need to be able to do so efficiently, effectively, and also this serves as an opportunity for you to come with like some key takeaways, right? If your, for example, if your K, if your discount rate, opportunity cost, however you want to call it, is smaller than your IRR, then you for sure have a scenario at which your NPV will be greater than 0. And in other words, you will for sure have a accept decision. That's very important to understand. And I hope this question serves as a, as I would say in French, as a tremplin to that like enlightenment. And then another thing that's pretty relevant is that your PV of cash outflows in these types of questions, especially for Comp 308 at Concordia, it's always the initial investment. Like you don't need to look further, okay? Another takeaway that you could take from this video, would be that the discounted payback period will always be smaller than the payback period. Okay, there's no way in hell that if you're going to discount a cash flow that is going to take you less time to retrieve your initial investment. That doesn't make sense. But anyways, that said, enough of my spiel. I've done enough. And with that, I hope that you feel comfortable, that you feel like you learned something, that you feel like you got something in a more human way, that you feel more, I don't know, you feel inspired a little bit, that you know that this is not as hard as it looks like, especially if you just pause the video and take some time, explain the bits and pieces that don't work for you. And you should be fine. If a fool like me that made that mistake with touching T and going back 10 pages every single time, that has been doing this mistake for the whole like last 72 hours, if I could do it, you could do it. I know it. You're awesome. You're amazing. You're a soldier. You got this. This is light work for you. These are just, you just got to put in the reps. And hopefully ISMA helps, you know, the website and the interactive questions, plus YouTube, plus all the PDFs and all that jazz. Hopefully it gives you a comprehensive view on the matter and that you could learn in a way that's more fun. Okay. So on that note, see you later. Au revoir. Bye-bye.